Myth number one: if I loan money to a friend or a relative, I am helping them. Now, after I do this, occasionally I'm going to point out to you, and if I point out to you and you see on the screen a myth, you're going to yell myth. If you see up there a truth and I point out to you, you're going to yell truth. And that's only if I point, because we don't do it all the time. There's a bunch of them to go. But we'll start with this one. This is a myth. Definitely, because you and I both know that the truth is the relationship will be strained or destroyed. 57% of Americans, when polled, say they've seen a friendship or a relationship end because of loaning money. 63%, Bankrate.com says, have seen someone skip out on repaying a loan to a friend. If you've ever loaned someone money at work, you give them $50 to help them get through till payday. Have you ever noticed how they really don't sit near you in the lunchroom? It kind of changes the relationship because you're no longer just friends. You're now master and servant. Well, I didn't feel that way. Doesn't matter how you feel. There's an underlying spiritual and emotional truth regardless of how you feel. You've changed the relationship. You loan your children money. Thanksgiving dinner tastes different until your children get the money paid back because they're eating not with their mom and dad, not with the grandparents of their children, but with their master. And turkey just doesn't taste the same when you eat it with your master. Oh, well, it's not that way in our family. See, what that's called is denial and stupidity. The reality is this is how it really works. Loaning money to someone, a friend or a relative, doesn't help. We have popped that myth. All right, now, myth. By co-signing a loan, I'm helping out a friend or a relative. Truth. The bank requires a co-signer because this is someone who's not going to repay. Why is this hard to figure out? This is a bank whose very job is to lend money. They don't make money unless they lend money, and they have deemed your relative or your friend to not be worthy of a loan. But you in your all-knowing might and power will overstep those bounds and go, I just know them different than you do. No, you don't. They're statistically a deadbeat looking for a place to happen. And let me tell you what happens when you co-sign. You will end up paying the bill. I've co-signed for 2 loans in my life. I paid both of them. One poor fella co-signed for me when I was going broke, and he ended up paying that. I had to go back and pay him back. It was a friend, but it strained the friendship. Just the same. Because he just assumed Dave was going to pay for it. Well, Dave would have paid for it, but Dave didn't have any stinking money. And that's how that works. And you know, I've seen grandfathers loan their grandkids money to get a car at 20 years old, and then they don't see them for a decade because the loan goes bad. If you've got someone in your family that needs some help, and you're thinking about co-signing a loan for them, or you're thinking about loaning them money, don't. If you have money, and you think that they need the money, it's family, it's blood. Give them the money, and don't expect it back. So with co-signing and lending, don't go mess up your relationships. That's a myth. Certainly okay to ask anybody to co-sign a loan, but I wouldn't recommend co-signing a loan to anyone, and I wouldn't recommend getting a co-signer. I think it's a stupid idea. If you need a co-signer, it's because you're not ready to borrow. And most of the time what we'd be talking about on something like that's a car, or maybe some other thing that you should be saving up to pay for to start with. So I don't think you ought to get the loan, and I'm sure your parents shouldn't co-sign for you. Myth. Cash advance, payday lending, rent to own, title pawning, and tote the note lots are services to lower income people to help them get ahead. Truth. These are horrible, greedy ripoffs that aren't needed and benefit no one but the owner of these companies. If you're running one of these companies, you're taking advantage of the poor, you're oppressing the poor, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Stop it. 800%, 1,800%, 500%. I mean, you think credit cards are bad at 18%, you ought to deal with these characters. According to Sea Power magazine, military right now, military is one of the most aggressively targeted audiences by these people. As a matter of fact, I've visited a lot of military bases, and you know, when you leave a lot of military bases in America, installations across America, as you leave the base or the installation and you're driving out the road, what you've got on each side of the road for about 3 miles is stupid. Stupid of all kinds, right there just outside the gates, isn't it? And these young guys and gals that have just gotten into the military with their first paycheck, a lot of them just out of high school are out there, and they get tied up with these payday lenders so bad that the federal government had to pass a law, if you're in the military, you can't pay but 30% instead of 800% to a payday lender. Because what's happening is the payday lending is the #1 reason sailors are losing their security clearance and they're getting a cut in pay because they get downgraded in pay grade when they lose their security clearance. It's killing us across the board. Not just military, everybody's falling for this junk. 80% of millionaires in America, though, listen to this, are first generation rich. So how does that go into this other thing? Well, what I figured out is this. Tom Stanley in the book The Millionaire Next Door says 80% of America's millionaires are first generation rich. That means they started with nothing, did smart stuff, and became millionaires. 8 out of 10 of them. Which is like the opposite of what we're talking about here, isn't it? And what I started thinking about is, you don't see these greedy rip-off things we're talking about in the rich end of town, do you? You don't see rent to own in the high rent district. You don't see title pawning or payday lending in the high rent district, do you? It's in the poor end of town, isn't it? You know why? Because there's 2 types of people in the poor end of town. There's broke people and there's poor people. And there's a difference. Mike Todd says, just like Dave Ramsey says, I have been broke, but I've never been poor. Poor is a state of mind. Broke is I'm passing through, I ain't gonna live here long. I don't like this place. It's a mentality difference, isn't it? And what I have figured out is if you do rich people stuff, even if you're broke, if you do and think and buy and spend and save and budget like rich people, eventually you get to be rich people. But if you're rich or if you're poor and you do poor people stuff like these rip-off things, you know what you're gonna be? It's behaviors, isn't it? I mean, if you're rich and you start running around with title pawning, you start running around with payday lending, you start getting ripped off and doing all these stupid things with money, in 1 generation you can undo what it took 3 generations to build, can't you? You can blow it all. And you can start from nothing, 80% of them did that are millionaires, and you can do smart stuff, rich people stuff, and get to be rich people. That's good news for people like me, because I had to do it twice. I had to go with a do-over. I got Mother May I penalty steps for stupidity and had to start the walk again. And so what you got to do is you got to think, what are rich people doing with money? And if I do rich people stuff, I get to be rich people. It doesn't matter where you live or where you are now. You're just passing through. You're either rich heading towards poor or poor heading towards rich. Or poor going to stay poor or rich going to stay rich. These are possibilities, right? They're the only 4 possibilities. And it's based on the type of people you interact with, like these characters. So these people aren't services to the lower income people. These people are ripping them off. They're getting rich on them too, but it's blood money. It's not good money. It's kind of dangerous money. So that one is definitely, we're serving lower income people. That's a myth. Done. Not doing that one. Myth. Playing the lottery or other forms of gambling will make me rich. Then why, when I see the line to buy the lottery tickets, there's no rich people in the line? Why is it always Daryl and his other brother Daryl?
Oh, it's entertaining to me to lose money. I do it for entertainment.
It's entertaining? Why don't you just get some 20s and drive down the interstate and cause a car wreck by throwing them out? That'd be entertaining. I mean, just throwing money out the window. I mean, we might as well do something fun with it, you know? Go over at the mall, cause a riot or something, you know? But it's fun to lose money. The truth is the lottery is a tax on the poor and on people who can't do math. Because these are who play. Texas Tech did a study of the Texas lottery, and they found that people without a high school diploma spend an average of $173 a month playing the lottery there. College graduates don't spend $173 a month. They spend $49 a month on average. These are among the people who play the lottery. That's the difference. Any study that's ever done the lottery, when they do a zip code study on where the sales are the highest, where the revenue is generated, it's always in lower income zip codes. We're using the lottery to fund scholarships in our state. Well, that's real noble. Poor people sending middle class and rich people's kids to college. That's just brilliant. It's just brilliant. It's what it is. And you know, it's not a matter, this is a statistical fact. This is not even a moral statement. And it's not a biblical statement or a spiritual statement. I could make those about it that are an overlay on this subject, but this is just a simple statistical analysis. So let's try this. If you got someone or you know someone that's kind of, I don't know, plagued by the lottery. $173 if they don't have a high school diploma, $49 if they do, if they're a college graduate. So what if we took $50 a month, that's the low end of that spectrum, put it in a mutual fund, oh, I don't know, let's play the lottery from 20 to 70 years old. How much do you think that'd be? $1,900,000 every time. Not like one time out of 8 gazillion. Well, somebody's got to win. Every time you do this, you'll win. Somebody's got to win. That's what people say they're stupid about this subject. And I hope I'm making some of you mad and miserably uncomfortable. It's a gift I have. Another study showed that those with annual incomes under $20,000, if they have a family of 4, that's a poverty level, are playing the lotto twice as much as anybody who makes over $40,000. It's a tax on the poor. It is not a way to build wealth. That's the truth.